faith, belief in action. Wish TV is sharing the stories of people who are guided by their faith from all religions, denominations, and walks of life, and in all the ways faith manifests itself. From the All Indiana Podcast Network, this is Finding Faith.
Their son, Ren, is 9 years old. He's now blind and battling dementia as he suffers from what's called Batten disease.
Yeah, his parents say every day is difficult, but it's their faith that helps get them through. So here to share their story are Cathryn and Jae Tolliver, of course, in today's Finding Faith. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you.
You know, for a lot of people who perhaps are watching thinking Batten disease, that's something I've never quite heard of. Can you explain exactly what is that and what does it entail?
So it is a very rare neurologically degenerative disease that there's no treatment or cure officially, results in loss of motor skills. So the eyes are the first thing affected. So he started losing his vision around 4.5, was totally blind by about 6. And then the brain is the next thing that's really affected. So it leads into dementia, loss of the ability to talk, walk, eat. It's completely degenerative.
It was born completely normal.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
just
what
like
I was wondering.
Picture perfect child. You couldn't ask for a more perfect
No
child.
signs or anything.
No. And he was just, you know, he's beautiful, articulate, athletic, the whole shebang.
Yeah.
And to see him change like that and start losing his vision, you know, you're just going through all these things in your head, what could be going on, and you have all these tests done. And so when we got the diagnosis, we were obviously just devastated. You can't describe, you know, how you feel at a moment like that or encompass the grief with words. So
This is going to sound like a silly question because I feel like it's fairly obvious, but how does this impact your all's life?
It's immeasurable. The stress that it causes us, the intensity of his behaviors, you know, he can't control that. And I want people to understand that sometimes when you see a child out in public, you don't know what's going on with that child. So, you know, he is very intense and demanding, aggressive, agitated. So we're kind of in a state of almost PTSD, only the P would stand for present, not post. And it just doesn't really stop because we're always trying to prevent the next trigger from happening. So you are embattled with your child who you're losing, and you don't have the opportunity to process your grief or to love him the way that you want to love him.
It's a tough story, but it's also a story of hope, and it's a story of faith. Let's talk about what the future looks like for Ren and what you want people at home to really know and perhaps help create awareness as well.
So there is a clinical trial for his form of Batten disease. It's been sort of dormant for about 3 years now. It had started with 7 children in phase 1 and 2 and then kind of shut down. And there was some research that came out, and so they're kind of retooling how they deliver the gene therapy. It's a more invasive process where they would put it directly into the brain where they were going into the spinal fluid before.
They're putting the gene in that he's missing.
Okay.
So
that's caused the problem, the cell death. His cells are dying because the protein is building up in them. So
it's kind of waiting for that, you know, FDA process that takes a long time to come back on board, and yet it's a race against time with Ren and the decline that we're experiencing and seeing in him. So it's a difficult place to be, but we have faith.
Yeah, we're asking for prayer because, you know, he's 9 now, and the motor decline is expected around somewhere between 10 and 12. So we need this clinical trial to get going, or whatever it is that God has intended for us. I mean, we're positive that God entrusted us with Ren, and there were many, many signs and indications prior to him coming into our life, and his sister, his twin sister, that we were going to have these kids. And we had quite a battle getting pregnant with 7 failed in vitros and a failed adoption. It was an absolute miracle that these kids came. And there were, like I said, there were many signs, and a lot of times those signs were delivered through a word that I would hear during prayer time. And then I would again hear that later, and that was confirmation. And it was a totally obscure word, not something you would hear in normal conversation. I would hear it loud as a bell in my head during prayer time when I was grieving and devastated, right? So the same thing happened when we got Ren's diagnosis, and the 3 words that I was given and heard very clearly were fight, breakthrough, and victory. So we're clinging to those words. We're in the fight right now.
You're also, very quickly, you're very open and raw on your Facebook page, very honest. Yeah. And that's a big place where people can follow your story.
Yeah, for sure. It's called Victory for Ren.
Yep.
And it's a public page, so anybody can jump on there to see a little bit more about it. But we're believing for a breakthrough and a victory. And we know we'll have it either this side of heaven or the other, but there's going to be a victory for Ren.
However that plays out.
Yeah, we know that God performs miracles, and prayers certainly do a lot of work. So thank you both so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
We will be praying for you guys, absolutely.
I appreciate that.
From Wish TV, this is Finding Faith. Be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast, and be sure to check out other great podcasts on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Online now at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.